Before we go on, I don't mention this nearly as often as I should, but if you're a fan of my work here on YouTube, maybe you would consider checking out my books, linked below, on Amazon, available in paperback and Kindle ebook formats. They're sort of a narrative hodgepodge of everything I talk about on my channel, with a plot that's sort of like Treasure Island meets Harry Potter meets Redwall. Anyway, on with the actual bit. Right out of the gate, I'll not be touching on just how realistic the idea of augmenting humans is, or why we'd resort to such things for war rather than just building AI battle droids, as there's other YouTubers who do a much better and more thorough job of breaking open those worm cans than I ever could. I'd personally recommend the channel Installation 00 for his breakdown series on the Halo Spartan augmentations. Links will be provided in the description for your convenience. On with my own chosen subject. From the moment man first recognized himself, he dreamed of how he could become better. And from the moment men first started waging war, they dreamed of becoming the ultimate warrior. If you're at all familiar with anything even tangentially related to sci-fi, you're undoubtedly familiar with the modern concept of the super soldier. Better, faster, stronger, tougher, more intelligent than any natural-born human has ever been before or could ever be. From Captain America to Spartans, to Space Marines and even Witchers, and the one-winged angel himself. Whether they're made strong via a magic potion or arcane medical procedures, whether they're encased in powered armor, blessed by the gods or granted a mystic weapon, the end result is always more a hyper-lethal vector than a soldier. A post-human autonomous missile which needs only be pointed at a target or given an objective and set loose. From a pure military perspective, super soldiers are almost invariably treated as the strategic equivalent of a keyboard shortcut. Press Alt-W to finish this fight. But how would such an asset realistically be employed in a regular conflict? That is, when the fate of the world's not at stake, what role would a super soldier fill in a regular military apparatus? Well, to borrow a line from Scalagrim, the short answer is, it depends. The slightly longer answer is, it depends on just how super that soldier is, the nature of their enhancements, and the incumbent logistical measures associated with their deployment. As well, you'd have to consider the potential political ramifications of employing them. If, for example, a super soldier's abilities came from a taboo form of magic or outlawed technology, or what if the military had resorted to morally questionable or even outright illegal methods to create them? Everyone always conveniently forgets that the Halo Spartans weren't originally made to fight aliens, but to suppress rebellious human colonies, or how the Master Chief, much like RoboCop or the clones from Star Wars, for all intents and purposes is not legally a person, but property. And that's all before we truly get into the weeds of their actual abilities or stat spreads. To that end, in my own personal experience browsing the interwebs, the most common rule of thumb when describing any form of post-human, irrespective of the plot or setting, is that they have the strength of 10 men. The most glaringly obvious problem with this description is that it leaves wholly too much open to the imagination. Does it mean 10 average men or 10 average soldiers? Well, given that we're discussing super soldiers in this video, and given that super soldiers probably don't tend to go into battle against non-government-issued Joes, I'm going to be treating the latter as our benchmark. For the sake of simplicity, we'll assume the average man weighs about 185 to 190 pounds and has a power-to-weight ratio of between 0.5 and 1, meaning that on his best day his maximum strength cap is his own body weight. Now, for those who don't remember their high school physical education or who deliberately blocked that whole period of their life from memory, there's more than one metric for physical strength. There's the maximum strength, defined by the amount you can lift exactly once before needing a rest, set or bench strength, meaning the amount you can do a single 10-rep set of, and casual, meaning the highest amount you can lift pretty much all day without tiring. And the rule of thumb is your casual is 20% of your bench, which is 80% of your max. So using those metrics, on his best day, our average Joe has a maximum lifting strength of 190 pounds, a set strength of 152 pounds, and a casual lifting strength of just over 30 pounds. Now, a professional soldier will usually be held to a higher fitness standard than your average office drone, so we'll give him a strength-to-weight ratio between 1.5 and 2, meaning the same man, after attending grunt school, will have a max strength of up to 380 pounds, a set strength of 304, and a casual strength of 60. Most impressive. Multiplying both sets of numbers by 10 gives us a fairly decent idea of just what our hypothetical Superman is capable of. In short, if he has the strength of 10 fit but untrained men off the street, he'd have a max lifting strength of 1,900 pounds, or just under a ton, could bench press the average horse, and could casually curl the equivalent of 2 full-grown men like they were a jug of milk. For comparison, the current world deadlifting record is just over 1,000 pounds, and the world bench record is just over 750. But we're not even close to being done. A literal super soldier would be able to one-shot deadlift the average pickup truck, could bench press a motorcycle, and could as easily carry a literal pack mule on his back as could the reverse. Regardless of form or method, the combative advantages such a boost affords are self-evident, being able to single-handedly wield weapons that would normally take crews of men just to carry, while at the same time having the carrying capacity of a horse provides the added advantage of being able to move and fight under hundreds of pounds of armored steel as easily as though unencumbered, thus completely nullifying the main prohibiting factor in bulletproofing our real-world soldiers. But of course, superior strength is only a part of the equation, as nearly all versions of super soldiers have some form of enhanced speed, dexterity, senses, and reflexes to match their supreme power. As far as raw sprinting speed goes, if Usain Bolt's legs were made 10 times stronger, he would absolutely run way faster, but probably not 10 times, as he'd start having to cope with factors like the human body's lackluster aerodynamic profile and our legs' inherently inferior leverage compared to other similarly sized bipeds like ostriches or dromaeosaurs. However, I think we can reasonably say that a man with 10 times normal strength would be at least 5 to 6 times faster in a dead run. Also, as the better part of agility is strength, it seems to me relatively safe to assume that we'd be looking at a world-class gymnast as well as a champion strongman pooled into one supremely qualified package. Couple all that with a 3 or 4 times boost in neurological speeds, the best proprioception and sensory apparati genetic and surgical sciences can proffer, and give them the world-class training of a Special Forces commando, and you've got yourself a single unit with the default combat effectiveness of an entire company of regular infantry, a full Spec Ops platoon, or a whole squadron of armored fighting vehicles, being able to reliably capture or destroy whole enemy bases, tackle key hardpoints, or surgically strike at critical objectives all by themselves. However, the colossal catch to all these abilities that I don't hear hardly anyone ever mention is that, being as these men are still, at the end of the day, biological organisms, unless their biology is so far advanced or specifically modified to ameliorate it, their metabolisms are going to need to bear an extremely elevated tax for all that additional mass and equipment they're now packing. Just as a quick example, Captain America's basal metabolic rate, meaning the number of calories he needs just to maintain his body on the daily, canonically sits around 4 times higher than a normal man's. Installation 00 did a breakdown calculating Master Chief's BMR and concluded that, when adjusted for his superhuman physique, his activity level, and his more energy-hungry augmentations, he would need to eat around 18,000 calories a day. For comparison, a normal physically active man only needs around 2,600 calories a day. Professional bodybuilders typically consume between 4,000 and 6,000 on their busiest days, and even professional strongmen only consume around 13,000 calories per day the week before a major competition. And then we want to talk about Space Marines? Well, despite being around the same size, the average Space Marine weighs about the same out of armor as the Spartan does in full battle kit, which implies to me an even higher muscular density, as well as all of their extra organs and black carapace and what have you. So unless one of those extra organs can double as a turbocharger, or they can selectively turn off their metabolisms like the Vindicare snipers or custodians can, then their minimum daily caloric requirements are likely easily double or triple even the average Spartans, and likely 10 to 20 times that of an ordinary grunt from either universe. All of which is to say that my initial description of super soldiers as human-shaped ordnance was actually more technical than poetic, since like missiles their devastating power is counterbalanced with a relatively poor range and gas mileage. So, bearing that in mind, it seems to me that a realistic super soldier would be an exclusively surgical, deep strike asset, being deployed to the hardest and most vital enemy positions with a mandate to get in, most likely via a rapid insertion pod or dropship of some sort, hit their targets, take out their objectives, then bug out as quickly as possible. I.e., the precise polar opposite of what we tend to see them doing in our popular fiction. Right, that's another round of my YouTube quota filled. Insert generic YouTube outro here, and until next time, stay safe, stay sane, and stay ever curious. Over and out.